We're going to create a cozy cinematic scene in Blender featuring a realistic cat resting on a desk beside a candle, complete with subtle animations, atmospheric lighting, volumetric effects, and camera depth of field. First, let's create the desk. Add a cube and scale it to the size you want for your table. You can press S and then Shift Z to scale the cube only on the X and Y axis while excluding the vertical Z axis. Now select the desk and enter Edit mode. Press Ctrl R to create a loop cut near the edge of the table. Then select the larger bottom face and press E followed by Z to extrude it downward. Next, select the upper edge loop around the table and move it slightly downward using G and Z. After that, press Ctrl B to bevel the edges. Return to object mode. Now add 3 planes, 1 for the floor and 2 for the side walls. Fill them appropriately to create a small room around our desk. Before creating detailed models, it's always a good idea to block out your scene using simple shapes. So let's add some placeholders. Add a sphere to represent the cat, add a cylinder for the candle, add a plane for the paper, and finally add 2 cubes to represent the hands. Position these objects roughly where they will eventually appear in the final scene. Now it's time to define our camera angle. Press numpad 0 to switch to the camera view. Press N to open the side panel. Go to the view section and enable camera to view. This option allows the camera to move together with your viewport navigation, making it much easier to compose your shot interactively. Instead of manually moving and rotating the camera, you can simply navigate the viewport until the framing looks right. Adjust the composition until you're happy with the overall look. Next, select the camera. Properties panel, open the camera tab and set the focal length to somewhere between 55 and 60 mm. Now enable depth of field. Switch to rendered view and delete the default light. Add a new point light and position it directly above the candle placeholder. Apply the settings shown on screen. Next, add an area light on the side of the scene and adjust it using the settings shown on screen. Select the table and assign it a dark brown color. This color is only temporary because we'll replace it with a proper wood texture later. While still in rendered view, open the Render Properties panel. For the render engine, select Cycles. Under Device, choose your GPU if your graphics card supports it. Scroll down to the color management and change look from none to medium high contrast. Finally, go to the world settings and darken the environment color. Since my computer isn't very powerful, I temporarily switch back to EV while working. However, if your system can handle it, feel free to continue using cycles throughout the entire project. Select the candle cylinder, press Shift S and choose cursor to select. Press Shift A and add a new cylinder. Press slash on the numpad. For edit mode, we'll build the candle holder using repeated inset and extrude operations. Once the basic shape is finished, return to object mode and add a subdivision surface modifier. After that, right-click on the object and select Shade Smooth. Now switch to Sculpt mode. Our goal is to create a handmade ceramic holder rather than a perfectly manufactured object. We'll mainly use 2 brushes. Grab brush. Brush allows us to push and pull large areas of the mesh. Crease brush. This brush creates sharp grooves and indentations, making it ideal for adding details and emphasizing edges. To create cracks and broken areas, return to edit mode. Press K to activate the knife tool and draw cuts across selected faces. When you're finished, Press Enter to confirm the cuts. Select some of the newly created faces and delete them to simulate chipped or broken ceramic. Finally, go back into sculpt mode and use the grab brush to slightly deform the damaged areas, making the breaks appear more natural. Press slash to exit local view and place the holder correctly in the scene. Select the candle object and enter edit mode. Hold Alt and click the top edge loop of the candle to select it. Press Ctrl B to bevel the top edge. Return to object mode. Open the shader editor, create a new material for the candle and apply the node setup shown on screen. Add a new UV sphere and place it above the candle wax. Enter edit mode. Select the top vertex or top area of the sphere, press O to enable proportional editing, then press G followed by Z and pull the geometry upward. You can also rotate the flame slightly to make it appear more dynamic and natural. Return to object mode. Create a new material for the flame. Delete the default principled BSDF shader. Press Shift A and add an emission shader. Apply the settings shown on screen. Now adjust the previously created point light so that it sits slightly above the flame. Select the candle and switch to sculpt mode. Use the grab brush to deform the surface slightly. Real candles melt over time, so perfectly cylindrical shapes often look artificial. Now let's bring our main character into the scene. After creating a free account, you'll gain access to thousands of models created by artists around the world. Search for realistic cat and enable the downloadable filter. You will find many great options, but the model I'm using is created by Alben Tan. You'll find both the Sketchfab page and the download link in the video description. Click Download 3D Model and choose Original Format. After downloading, extract the archive. Inside Blender, go to File, Import, GLTF 2.0 and select the .glb file. Position the cat where we previously placed the placeholder sphere, then delete the sphere. Open the cat material in the shader editor and apply the settings shown on screen. Open the Particles tab and press the plus button. Change the particle type to hair and apply the settings shown on screen. Without fur, the cat would likely look flat and less convincing. Next, add an area light behind the cat. Position it so that it shines onto the fur along the cat's back. Open the light's data properties and apply the settings shown on screen. This technique is known as rim lighting. Rim lights create bright highlights along object edges, helping separate the subject from the background and emphasizing fine details such as fur. Finally, select the candle holder, create a new material, and apply the node setup shown on screen. Achieve a ceramic appearance. Return to Sketchfab and search for realistic hand. The model I'm using was created by Rufimora23 and you'll find the download link in the description. Download the model in its original format. After extracting the archive, import it into Blender through File, Import, Wavefront.obj. Select the downloaded .obj file. Once imported, delete the placeholder cube and position the hand correctly. Press slash to isolate the hand. Press Shift S and choose cursor to select. Now press Shift A, Armature, Single Bone. The Object Properties panel open Viewport Display and enable In Front. This setting makes the bones visible through the mesh, allowing us to position them accurately even when they are inside the model. Position the first bone so that it sits precisely in the elbow area from every viewing angle. Enter Edit mode. Select the tip of the bone and press E to extrude a new bone. Continue extending the arm structure. For the fingers, extrude 5 separate bone chains from the wrist area and position them inside each finger. Take your time during this stage because proper bone placement greatly affects animation quality. Once all bones are finished, return to Object. Select both the hand and its armature and press Shift D to duplicate them. Move the duplicates aside. From the top menu, choose Object, Mirror, Global Y. Instantly creates both left and right hands. Now select one hand first, then hold Shift and select its armature. Press Ctrl P and choose Width, Automatic, Weights. Repeat the same process for the second hand. If everything was done correctly, selecting the armature, switching to pose mode, and moving a bone with G should also move the hand mesh. Select the paper object, press Shift S and choose cursor to select it. Now press Shift A, go to curve and add a Bezier curve. Enter Edit mode and shape the curve so it looks like a pen shaft naturally held by a hand. Once you're satisfied with the shape, return to Object mode. The Properties panel, open the Curve Data Properties tab. Under the Geometry section, increase the bevel depth value to 0.02. Now let's create the feather. Press Shift A and add a plane. Enter Edit mode, rotate it vertically and use Ctrl R to create one horizontal and one vertical loop cut. Fill the vertices to create the overall feather shape. Next, press Ctrl R again and use the mouse wheel or the plus key. Add several additional loop cuts across the surface. These extra edge loops provide enough geometry for sculpting and deformation. Switch to Sculpt mode. Use the grab brush to gently bend and shape the feather. Real feathers are never perfectly straight, so introducing subtle curves makes the model significantly more believable. You can also use the crease brush along the center of the feather. This creates a visible groove that mimics the central shaft found in real feathers. Once both parts are finished, place the feather next to the pen shaft. Select the feather and create a new material. Use a combination of noise texture and color ramp nodes to create natural color variation and subtle irregularities across the surface. Next, select the curved object and assign it a brown material to resemble wood. Finally, select both the feather and the pen shaft, press Ctrl P and choose Object. Parenting allows the feather and shaft to move together as a single object. Give the hand models a simple cream-colored material. Now let's add a realistic wood texture to the table. Open the website Polyhaven. Polyhaven provides free, high-quality textures, and 3D assets that can be used in both personal and commercial projects. Click Browse Textures and search for old wood. This is the texture set I'll be using, and you'll find the download link in the video description. Download the texture package and extract the archive. Select the table and open the shader editor. Add an image texture node and click Open. Locate the extracted texture files and choose the image containing diff in its file name. Diffuse or albedo texture contains the base color information for the material. Next, add another image texture node and load the image containing this. Change the color space setting to non-color. Maps such as displacement, roughness, and normal maps contain data rather than color information, so setting them to non-color ensures Blender interprets them correctly. Press Shift-A, go to Vector, and add the displacement node. Connect the displacement texture's color output to the height input of the displacement node. Then connect the displacement node directly to the displacement socket of the material output. Now add another image texture node and load the texture containing NOR in its file name. Connect it through a normal map node to the material's normal input. Finally, add one more image texture node and load the texture containing rough. This map to the material's roughness input. Move the left hand slightly backward. Select the right hand along with its armature and press slash to isolate them. Select the armature and switch to pose mode. Use G and R to move and rotate the bones until the hand appears to be naturally holding the quill pen. Don't worry about achieving perfect precision, because the hands and pen will remain in darker, out-of-focus regions of the scene. Minor imperfections will barely be noticeable in the final render. Return to object mode. Position the pen carefully between the fingers. Next, select the left hand and its armature. Switch to pose mode and pose the hand so it appears to be resting on the desk. Once you're satisfied, select the armatures and press H to hide them. Select the right hand armature. Press I and choose Location Rotation Scale. Creates our first keyframe and stores the current transformation values. Now enable auto keying. Move to frame 30. Move the hand slightly forward on the X-axis. Go to frame 60. Move the hand slightly toward the left. At frame 120, select the original keyframe from frame 0, press Shift-D to duplicate it, and move the copy to frame 120. Press spacebar to preview the animation. Select the cat. In the Object Data Properties panel, locate Shape keys. Press the plus button twice. Select the second shape key and enter Edit mode. Select the section around the cat's upper back. Enable proportional editing if it isn't already active. Press G and then Z to move the back slightly upward. Turn to object mode. You'll notice that increasing the shape key's value to 1 causes the cat's back to rise, creating the illusion of breathing. Move to frame 0. The shape key value set to 0, hover over the value slider and press I to insert a keyframe. Enable auto keying. Move to frame 40 and change the value to 1. The cat now appears to inhale. Duplicate and repeat these keyframes further along the timeline using Shift-D. Repeating this sequence creates a seamless breathing loop. But idle animations like breathing are extremely important because they prevent characters from appearing lifeless or frozen. While the cat is still selected, add another shape key by pressing the plus button. Enter Edit mode. Select one of the cat's ears and move it slightly. This will allow us to create subtle ear movement. At frame 60, insert a keyframe with the shape key value set to 0. At frame 70, set the value to 1 and insert another keyframe. Finally, at frame 75, return the value back to 0 and insert one last keyframe. Select the candle's point light. Move to frame 0 on the timeline. In the Light Data Properties panel, hover over the power value and press I to insert a keyframe. Enable Auto Keying. Go to frame 6 and slightly reduce the light's power value. Then move to frame 16 and increase the power above its original value. Finally, at frame 20, return the power to its initial setting. Select all 4 keyframes and press Shift-D to duplicate them. Move the duplicated keys further along the timeline. Repeat this process until approximately frame 160 to create a continuous looping flicker animation. Now let's animate the flame object itself. Select the flame mesh. At frame 0, press I and choose Location, Rotation, Scale. With Auto Keying still enabled, move to frame 4. Press S and then Z to slightly stretch the flame vertically. At frame 5, move the flame slightly to the left. At frame 6, move it slightly to the right. At frame 9, return it to its original position. Continue duplicating and repeating these keyframes until around frame 160 to create a seamless looping flame animation. Add another area light above the candle. Apply the setting shown on screen. Position the light so that it gently illuminates the cat's back. To keep the surrounding environment dark, select the wall objects and assign them a dark gray or black material. Here's the material's roughness value. To create a cinematic atmosphere, we'll add volumetric lighting. Press Shift-A and add a cube. Scale it until it completely surrounds the entire scene. This cube will act as a container for our volumetric effects. Open the shader editor and create a new material for the cube. Delete the default Principled BSDF shader. Press Shift-A and search for Principled Volume. Add the node and connect its volume output directly to the volume input of the material output node. Now let's move on to compositing. Open the compositing workspace from the tabs at the top of Blender. Enable Use Nodes. Press Shift-A, go to Filter, and add a glare node. Change the glare type from streaks to fog low. Place the node between the existing render layers and composite nodes. Now change the threshold value to 1.5 and set the size to 6. Return to the Layout workspace. Open the Output Properties panel. Set the frame end value to 160. Choose a location where Blender should save the rendered images. For the output format, select PNG. Once everything is ready, go to Render, Render Animation. After all frames have finished rendering, open a new Blender project. Switch to Video Editing Workspace. In the sequencer, press Shift A and choose Image Sequence. Navigate to the folder containing your rendered images. Press A to select all images and click Add Image Strip. Set the frame end value to 160. Choose a save location for the final video. Finally, go to Render Animation once again. Blender will now combine all individual frames into a finished video file. And that's it. We've successfully created a cozy cinematic cat scene complete with realistic lighting, atmospheric effects, subtle animations, and cinematic rendering techniques. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps support the channel and motivates me to create more Blender tutorials. Also, let me know down in the comments what you'd like to learn next, whether it's modeling, animation, lighting, sculpting, or another cinematic scene. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next tutorial.